Hi, my name is Peter Moe and I'm from Tourism Ireland's Nordic office in Copenhagen. Today, we will delve into the intriguing world of an ancient mythological being, the Púca, and its namesake, the Púca Festival, where Samhain, or as you might know it, Halloween, is celebrated, as Ireland is the birthplace of Halloween and has celebrated it for thousands of years. And we have the perfect person with us here today to enlighten us on this, Dr. Kelly Fitzgerald, head of the School of Irish, Celtic Studies and Folklore in University College Dublin. Now, Kelly, you're very welcome to our show today. Would you mind telling our listeners what the Púca is?
I'd be delighted to. Well, the Púca, of course, is this mischievous figure that's in the larger world of the good people or the good folk or the, Irish supernatural, otherworldly, preternatural tradition. And I suppose the Púca is there all year round and can be quite a mischievous maker. And that divilment is a part of Samhain and Halloween tradition. And then there are other aspects that we see that really brings the Púca to the fore at this time. As we see from the beginning of August, which is Lúnasa, the beginning of the harvest, here now as we come into Samhain, which is the name for the month of November in Irish.
Okay.
So yes, and so it's really marks the end of the harvest. So as we are coming into the really dark half of the year, we are preparing ourselves for winter. And this is that time of year that there's a thin veil between this world and the other world. And things aren't quite the way you would expect them to be on an ordinary day. And humans have really taken advantage of that and have kind of really brought it in to their own and really made something of it. And it's known that if you haven't finished picking your berries by this time of the year, that the Púca is going to defecate on them. And so
Okay.
I mean, a very simple trick would say, if you haven't picked fruit by this time of the year, it's probably not really healthy to eat it. But instead, that imagination and that kind of vibrancy of living in a very creative world and a creative space is really expressed when we see how we can imagine the Púca interacting with humans at this time of year.
Okay, so is that an example of the mischievousness of the Púca that you said before?
Absolutely, absolutely. And on the one hand, yes, you have that behavior happening, and as well as that, other aspects of the other world are very much a part of this time of year, and we see, hence, people are really caught up in trying to protect themselves from being caught out by figures in the other world.
And these figures from the other world, they're simply crossing between here when you have this transition between summer and winter, I guess.
Correct. It is. And we see that in some ways it's the transition from summer to autumn happens at the beginning of August in Irish tradition. So we have that autumn is August, September, October, and then winter is seen as November, December, and January. February being St. Bridget's Day, being the first day of spring in Irish tradition. So here we have it. We are at the very kind of and if you think of it, that time from the end of October to the middle of December until we get to Nollaig, to Christmas, it just becomes darker and darker every evening.
Definitely. So I'm intrigued by the Púca. What is the Púca? What does it look like? Is it good? Is it bad? And
oh, what was the Púca? I mean, how do you describe it? I mean, again, people have described it. It is, it's quite interesting. Because we have to remember, this is coming from a vernacular culture. It's coming from the imagination. This is not being handed down and then we take it on in terms of a belief system as already set in stone. So in that way, when we look at really kind of images of the other world or aspects of the other world, quite often they look just like any other human being. But then we have aspects to them that see it. And we have things, you could hear this kind of reference to the fair dearg, a red man, and dearg a term in Irish for red, often has connections to the other world. If that type of color comes into a story, that is often an indicator that this is something from the other world that's coming into the narrative. Another
Okay.
term, Breac, speckled, this kind of speckling that comes through, and that would be connections to the other world. So quite often, they would look like humans or be like humans, but then they could have other aspects that really are indicators of where they're really coming from.
Okay, so they're human-like, or they're trying to be human kind of thing.
They can be, yes. And then think of it, if we think of the other world, if we think of it like the leprechaun is human-like, but then this image that he's shorter than normal, this kind of image that a
Mm.
leprechaun could be about 2 feet. Now, again, this is all in the creative imagination. So it's not that there is this kind of, you can't go to some book of botany or zoology and find
Yeah,
these
yeah. There's
figures in.
there's no definitive way the puka looks, because it's
Yes,
yeah, that's fair.
but then I do see images of it coming up a bit more devil-like or having aspects to it that may be a bit different. And it's quite interesting. It's the puka, unlike the leprechaun, that does have a very strong visual connection to it. In some ways, you see the puka having images that come through. If we take it, it's the same image of Puck. So Puck Fair, if you go back, it's what Shakespeare is referring to in A Midsummer's Night Dream. That's the puka, and that's goat-like, so it has that animal imagery on it. So again, different ways in which it's been imagined, we see coming through. So again, is it disfigured? Is it that more kind of boogeyman, goblin-like figure? All
Or
of
is it a
that can come through.
shapeshifter?
Yes, it can come through in the imagination.
Fair enough. So it's not really something that you can easily describe. And then you have to, if I were to say, then you would have to look out for the signs, the speckledness possibly, or the
Yes,
red,
yeah.
the
Yeah,
mischievousness maybe.
the goat-likeness of it. Yes,
Yes.
yeah. Yes, see, again, all of that, yes, all of that coming through. And I think we have to be very careful that we don't want to be too prescriptive in the image, because these traditions, to make them alive, they have to have that kind of elasticity or that malleability to them,
Yeah.
as each kind of culture, community, society can manifest how they are visualized in their own kind of
Mm.
way.
Yeah, they need it from their own reference point, I guess.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. So why is the puka associated with Samhain or Halloween?
Yeah, I think, Peter, I think again, there's those few images, particularly, it was quite prevalent for young people to be told, as a warning sign to not eat berries at this time of year if they were still left on the branches, because the puka would have defecated on them, or
Mm.
language to that extent. And we see that kind of really being a tradition that you can see being passed down, as it gives kind of knowledge of how to navigate in the world and things like that. And we also have the image that whatever about Halloween, the eve of Hallow, this All Hallowed evening,
Mm.
and typical for Celtic holidays, they happen on the evening before the day. So when we have Halloween on the 31st of October, the 1st of November, of course, is All Saints' Day, 2nd of November, All Souls' Day. And it is said that on the 1st of November, the puka is very well behaved. So after he's gotten up to all his devilment the evening before, on All Saints' Day, he's very well behaved.
Okay. I didn't know that. That's fantastic. So it, well, you could say Halloween then is, well, in terms of the puka, is the puka letting out all its mischievousness, doing everything it can. That's fantastic. That's a nice little connection.
And that really parallels, because humans are allowed to get out all their mischievousness on Halloween as well. I mean, this is a
Yeah.
night that pranks are allowed. This is that time of
Mm.
year for we as humans to have a bit of devilment and get up to a bit of fun as well.
Yeah, and of course, I mean that I really like that, to be honest. it's kind of just the one day of the year where everything goes kind of. It's I can see the connection there with simply going out there, and it's the time of year where you can do everything and everything is allowed. That's the Halloween spirit. That's the, as you might say, the Púca. And I think that's very apt that you have the festival, the Púca festival in Ireland, celebrating Samhain or Halloween.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you can also imagine, particularly when you are very tied to the land, the end of the harvest is such a time to exhale and let your hair down. And really, this is your last hurrah before it really becomes the heavy winter. And you have to look and make sure that your stocks are in order, you're prepared for the winter. And that sense of relief would come through in how you would be able to act out or behave on a night like this.
So it's actually a night of relief, about happiness that you have come past the harvest season. Your harvest is in house as it is.
Yes.
Everything is done. Now it's the winter. You can potentially relax more.
And
Yeah, that's fantastic.
yeah, and not even relax, but kick up, have a bit of fun,
Yeah,
have a few drinks, go to a festival. And that time, it's again, we see that darkness is really creeping in by this time. And in some ways, Halloween gives you a time of year to not be afraid of the dark, but kind of lean into the darkness and kind of face your fears. Because if we think of it, what's also really important about this time of year, which is different from any of the other 3-quarter days in Ireland, is that the strong associations of the return of the dead at this time as well.
hmm.
So not only do you have the other world connections for Samhain, you are also very much, and that comes through with All Souls Day on the 2nd of November, but we are really preparing for it at this time. And that comes through very strongly, of course, with Roman Catholicism and the attached beliefs to purgatory, that there are those that have not, completed their alms or paid their
Their
dues here
dues.
on
Yeah.
this earth and are carrying them out in purgatory before they can leave. And when that is a really strong belief system within a community, you can see how that the two together, the other world, which is a world parallel to our natural world, and then the world of the dead, which in some ways appears like the other world, but is absolutely completely separate and different. You bring the two of those into force on this time of year, and it just really gives for a magnificent and dynamic event and time of year to celebrate and commemorate.
Yeah, of course. So that makes sense then. But how is it celebrated today? So if we take the Púca festival, what is the Púca festival?
Yeah, what are the Púca Festival? I mean, the Púca Festival, which takes place in Trim and Athboy in County Meath here in Ireland from, I believe, Friday, the 27th of October, right through our bank holiday there to Tuesday, the 31st of October, which is
Yeah.
Halloween. And we see
Or in
that,
general, just the end of the year, yeah? Or
yes,
end of
the
the, yeah, oh,
end of
October,
the
sorry.
end of October. And we see that Ireland has really regenerated traditions built on traditions that were already there, that have been practiced, customs and beliefs that have been there for some time. But what is so important to tradition, that you have to make it relevant and you have to make it fit the community in which it is now. And they've just done a fantastic, again, kind of focusing on the night. Having a festival at night like this is very different here in Ireland. And that's been really, really wonderful to be there up in Trim, a beautiful part of Ireland outside Trim Castle there, and seeing the parade coming through and locals really getting involved with it, as well as visitors from further afar. It's just been fantastic.
Okay, so this festival has this very, I want to say Halloweeny feel, but I'm guessing it's not as you would experience Halloween in the US. I'm guessing it has more of an Irish feel. So
Yeah,
so what
it's
what happens at the festival? What you
good.
mentioned parades, but
Yeah, so okay, so that's kind of a procession more so than a parade. I should maybe parade is the wrong term, the procession coming
Okay.
through. There's a lot that goes on. I mean, again, there's music acts, there's comedy, all of this kind of ways to come together. And
Things
we
that
see
bring
that,
relief.
yes, yes. And we see what's really important to this time of year. If we think of Halloween, it's that kind of like, again, let us think of the American Halloween just for a moment, and that trick-or-treating, which did take place in Ireland here as well, but not everywhere. This whole mumming, right? This whole fancy dress and mumming. In
So what's a
Irish,
mummer?
a
A
mummer,
mumming.
mumming is to be like in disguise, right? So you were like
Oh.
yeah, so mumming is another term for disguise. And so we see at Halloween is the beginning of the mumming season in Ireland, and to disguise. Whereas we see how in America, fancy dress really sticks with Halloween. But when we put it into the larger context here in Ireland, it is only the beginning of the mumming season or fancy dress or disguise. And at Halloween, it's that sense you're trying to disguise yourself from the other world so that they don't catch you, or you
Hmm.
can get away with being taken by them. But when we look into it then, particularly here in Ireland, if you look in Northern Ireland, the Christmas mummers that take place and that folk drama. In Munster, it's the 26th of December when the catching of the Ran is really important, and fancy dress and mumming is a part of that. And we see in traditionally in the past here in Ireland, you can see mumming all the way to the 1st of February with the Biddy Boys for Bridget's Day. So
Okay. So all of the
yes,
dark part of the
yes,
year basically would have this tradition of mumming or
disguise, disguise.
disguising. Yeah, disguise. I
Yes,
like that.
yes. And so this kind of really kicks it off. And that sense, give me a trick, or give me a treat, or I'll play a trick on you. That is definitely, in that way, I know that's, seeing kids traveling, seeing small children traveling around the neighborhood with their pillowcase sack, gathering store-bought candy from households, is that American image. But we see that is coming from the Irish tradition of Irish Guisers going around asking for various things.
Okay. I'm intrigued by the mumming. This whole concept here. Is there a lot of I want to say mumming. Is there a lot of disguises? Is there a lot of costumes at the Púca festival?
Yes, I mean, there are fabulous figures and characters at that. But yes, and it is very much a part of the tradition here. We see that going back here in Ireland, we have collections of people dressing up in fancy dress from the 18th century, that on Halloween, people in Ireland would come together and they'd go from house to house and they would collect money. They would collect bread, butter, cheese, eggs, and so on. And this was bringing it together for the feast,
I
right?
was
So
gonna
they were
say that
coming.
sounds like someone's having a feast.
Yes. So that sense of feasting is very much a part of Irish tradition, although we see it now in America, that kind of trick-or-treating way
Yeah.
of that, getting really sweet candy, as we would call it there.
Okay. Okay. Fair enough. But is there then, just to bring it back to the festival, is there feasting at the festival? Is there?
Oh, yes. I mean, because again, food is so important. And they do have the harvest market at the festival. And see, there we have barmbrack. Barmbrack would be kind of a sweet bread, kind of a cake,
Mhm.
barmbrack cake. And that, again, because we're so close from this world to the other world, the aspect of divination is really important at this time of year. And we see this in the food,
So
like the barm.
divination, the act of telling
Yes.
the future.
Yes, yes, yes. So nowadays, if you were to purchase a bar and brack at your local grocery store, you would have just a gold ring in it, or what would look like a gold ring. And whoever gets the gold ring is going to be married. Now,
Mm.
divination in earlier times could get much more. There'd be a lot of varied objects that could be found in the barn brack to kind of profess or prophesize on what was going to happen to you in the future. A lot with as I said with the gold ring, marriage divination, but we also see, not just in the barn brack, you could see kids being blindfolded and they have to point to a certain dish, and whatever dish they point to is their fate. So it could be
What?
a
Okay.
piece of wood. A piece of wood could either be you're going to become
Carpenter?
a carpenter, or you're going to die and it's your coffin,
God,
or
okay.
you're going to be beaten in marriage. I know it, like
Very
we
varied outcomes there.
I know, because again, I think everything now is good, clean, wholesome fun. But when this was a stronger time, beliefs were the full gamut. So you
Yeah,
could
yeah,
have
yeah.
it if you pointed to a dish of water, then you were going to emigrate from Ireland because you would be leaving. So you're crossing the water. If you pointed to a pea, you had a life of poverty ahead of you. So again, it's kind of
Okay.
quite interesting to see what's happening in that way for that.
But this sounds like a lot of, well, I know it's divination, but it sounds like also a lot of, let's say, fun and games. I mean,
Oh
are
yes,
there,
because
are there,
yeah,
does
it
that
is for the
feature at the
game.
festival?
Oh, yes, yes. Along with the barmbrack, you have the colcannon, you have the baked apples, so loads of food. But then all the other bits of fun would be there as well. Again, different events will be happening for different games, storytelling, there's
Ah,
talks and walks. I mean, there is something for everybody to really feel. And I sometimes feel people say, like, is this new, or this is kind of being made up? We Traditions come in and out. They have revivals. They are at times much stronger than at other times for
yeah, yeah,
various
of
reasons.
course.
So I think people should not be so caught up in that, and just to throw themselves in it and have a good time.
Yeah, take it as an experience. Be mischievous.
Be mischievous. But to go back on the divination, obviously the gold ring could mean early marriage. If you got a coin, of course, you could become
Wealthy?
wealthy. The button could mean that you're going to be a bachelor, never to marry for the boys. For young girls, if you caught the thimble, that could mean that you're headed for spinsterhood, and again,
Okay.
different pieces could be in that way for people. So,
So you have to watch out when you get your barnbracken at the
and you don't know
festival.
what your fate lies ahead for you.
But definitely sounds like you do need an interpreter.
Or take your own impression of
Yeah,
what you'd like. Do your own analysis, your own reading of it.
that's also a very good idea. Make your own connection. What do you think will happen? No, but that's I love the whole games aspect, to be honest. It's such a fun way of living in and experiencing it.
And games were always, it's quite interesting, even more recent times with my work here in Dublin, in Ireland, doing a lot of collecting work of folklore from a more inner city area here in Ireland. And Halloween is such an important holiday because it is so community based. And I think we now see Christmas has this more, we may see Christmas being a weightier holiday of the year, but Christmas has that side of it, that kind of buying Christmas gifts, and that is required in terms of if it's a good or bad holiday for you, for some people. But Halloween, everyone can take part in Halloween. Everyone can take part in these games, and everyone can feel a part of the community.
That is lovely. That's a good message. And actually, there's something I've been wondering about, just to bring it back. So we've talked a bit about Púca, the festival. Well, end of October each year, loads of things happening. You mentioned work. You mentioned stories, games, food, the whole shebang, as to say, everything there.
Mhm.
But if we take it back to the Púca myth, I mean, what was the Púca when you grew up? Was it something you knew about? Like, what's the significance of it?
Well, for me growing up, again, the puka, it would go about it that night either spitting or urinating on all the fruit. and that you weren't able to eat it after that. So again, it's that really practical way of preventing children of eating things that they shouldn't eat, that it's rotten or decayed. And also it gave a great story of it.
Yeah.
So I suppose I would have grown up with that. So then when you study and you see this is the same image that Shakespeare is drawing on for A Midsummer's Dream, I mean it was wonderful to see different ways that this figure could kind of interact with the human and that side of what it gives us.
Can I ask, do you have a favorite Púca legend? Or
No, I don't. I think God, I think it's not so much having a favorite Púca legend. What I love about the Púca is that having the Púca gives us a kind of an outlet, this creative outlet for the possibility of divilment or the possibility of what could happen.
so the representation of potential.
Yes, and if we think of it, it's what we love when we really put forward and deal with our fears. Like again, with the close associations with the dead and thinking of cemeteries and graveyards and that image for Halloween as well, and that kind of interaction with the dead coming back to have an impact on the living. And that sense, this is a night, do you dare walk through a cemetery? Do you dare walk through a graveyard? And you do it and you kind of confront your fears and you confront that side of things. And we love that as humans.
Okay.
We really love to have a time that something is not quite right in this world. And it's also quite interesting. We focus on it being one day of the year, allowing this, because think of how exhausted we would be if every day of the year was like this. So we have this time when things can be upside down, backwards, very different than they would in the ordinary. And again, as humans, we need these points of time to be extraordinary. And what that gives us in
Okay.
terms of human connections, in terms of social engagement, in terms of having special customs and practices and rituals, allowing us to act like this at a particular time in the year on a yearly basis, particularly when the world around us is changing. The leaves are a different color, the temperature is going down, the darkness of the night is creeping around us. We have our way of talking about that and expressing what all of this means.
That's a fantastic thought. So you talked a lot about challenging yourself, and do you dare go into the cemetery? Do you dare to do something daring? But where is the Púca festival actually taking place, though? Is it? I'm presuming it's not in a cemetery, or it might be. I don't know. Is it?
No, it takes across a number. The Púca Festival takes place in Trim and Athboy, up at here in County Meath, in Ireland.
Just north of Dublin.
It's north of Dublin, but not very far. It's a really wonderful area. The River Boyne flows through this area, and it's a really rich area in terms of early Irish stories and sagas. It's just a really fantastic part of the world. And we see that through archaeological findings, connections to events happening at this time of year are very much a part of this place.
Okay, so it is a place rooted in mythology, rooted in
Yes,
rooted in legend, I guess.
absolutely. So again, it's there's music, there's folklore, there's fire, there's feasting, there's
Ooh, there's
everything you
fire.
need. There's fire. Oh, there's a lot of. Sorry, Peter. There is a lot of fire. Yes, it's the
Oh, I love
nighttime.
fire.
So I know. Yeah, so there's a lot. Again, It's a fabulous time
Is
for
it
all of it.
fireworks or is it live fire? Is it
It's that kind of, well, in the past, it's that kind of, those fire throwers and fire performers and all of that has been there in the
okay?
past. And if you look at any of the imagery for the Púca Festival, it's what they use a lot for the marketing and the imagery for it.
Okay, so it's this whole I guess more authentic, like going back to it.
Yes.
It's something that stands out. It's not just your regular fireworks. It's
No, no,
fire,
it's
actual fire. That sounds
yes,
fantastic,
yes,
and I can imagine
yes,
that like I think I have seen some pictures like jugglers with fire in the night.
yes. That's it. That's it.
Oh, it looks so beautiful. Well, I
It
don't know
is
if it looks beautiful, but it looks so fantastical. I think that's more the
it's
word.
it's it's fantastic. I'm telling you, it is just, and again, I think people who have come to Ireland before, it just gives you a very different experience here. It's wonderful. And like I said, again, Halloween celebrations for Samhain would be quite local, they would have happened within the community.
Yeah, they would have happened everywhere on the island. Yeah.
Everywhere, everywhere. But how we live now, our communities are much larger now. We interact, we're much more multifaceted in how we engage and where we engage. And I think this is just a really wonderful way that is allowing us to engage the way that we do today, but to hark back on some of the really important ways in which humans connected with each other and what brought them together as a community from earlier times.
It still sounds so fantastical. I mean,
It is.
I love the thought of well, a bit of mischievousness, but
Yes.
stories, food. I guess a parade, but I mean the whole mummer thing is still probably my
Yes.
favorite. With I'm guessing it is disguises, as you say,
It's
costumes.
disguises. It is.
Yeah,
Yes, because again, in Ireland here, we'd call them Halloween geysers, specifically, which is the type.
geysers.
Geysers, so disguise, being under
Oh, okay.
disguise. Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
That's I mean, I love that, and I really, really want to go to the festival. I really just want to. I really want it to be Samhain or Halloween now. That's probably a whole other part of it.
Well,
Uh,
and you can see why people love this time of year. And there are people who like it is their favorite time of the year. In
I
the
get that.
way that you could see people love Christmas for the various reasons, similar. But again, Halloween has that bit of edge to it.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's not the coziness. It's not the
No,
oh, let's
no.
sit here and be happy and nice. No, it's the bit more. It's the
And don't
mischievousness.
it
It's
is.
the
And just
unknown. It's the unknown.
the unknown is so and the possibility of what could happen. And are you prepared for that? I mean, whatever could happen, who knows? Like, and again, as humans, here we are entering into the darkness. And instead of just sitting along, being all meek in the corner and accepting it, we're screaming into the darkness, like, take it on.
Oh yeah, because I guess it's also a preparedness for the coming darkness. Is it?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh, okay. See, there are so many facets of
Yeah,
Samhain that you don't think about on well, even though I was going
no.
to say on a day-to-day basis, but I would say probably on a yearly or lifetime basis, to be honest.
No, and again, many people who would have engaged with this, they're not having to necessarily recognize this. They're just going along with it.
Yeah.
And that's quite often how we live our lives. So if people think I never thought of it like that, but they might, if they step back a bit and thought about that, they'd say like, what's going on here? What's happening? And it's fantastic.
Yeah. It sounds like Samhain and the Púca Festival is the time for unforgettable experiences. Right. I have one last question.
Okay.
Do you have any Irish words or sayings you might want to share? Because you already mentioned that Samhain means October, uh,
Yes. Samhain is
and
November.
Mummer.
Samhain is
And
November. Samhain
sorry,
is
sorry, November,
November.
November. I'll make a note of that. Sorry. Samhain is November. You mentioned Mummers
Yes.
is disguise.
Yes, again, it's just the big things again. Like, again, when we think of Samhain, the 1st of November is the first day of winter, and it's really the end of the farmer's year.
Yeah.
So this is when people really tied to the land and in that traditional sense of agriculture had to make sure that they were ready for the season that was to come. So everything was all sorted and put away, and everything is there, and the your cattle and your sheep are ready for the winter, and all of that is happening. And this is that festival that happens now to say, yes, we've done all the work we have prepared for winter the best that we can. Let us take the time, let us engage and have a bit of fun,
celebrate.
and let us celebrate.
And let's take on this winter.
And take on this winter. And also, let us not forget our ancestors, and we'll commemorate the dead, and we will remember them at this time because we have time to reflect. Because we've been so busy with the harvest, let us take time now to reflect. And that's really wonderful.
That sounds really, really wonderful. And for all of our listeners out there, if you want to learn more about the Púca Festival, you can go to púcafestival.com. That's Puca festival.com to find out more. And I'm sure when you go, not if you go, you are definitely going to go. You might be lucky enough to spot Dr. Kelly there, and maybe she has a workshop. Maybe you're just lucky enough to hear her talk about Samhain. But it's such a fantastical thing, and I can just not wait for Halloween now. And I just want to say thank you very much, Kelly, for everything.
Peter, thank you so much. It was fantastic. Thank you.